Thank you for signing up for Theatre in Africa webinar series. Your presence and contribution is highly valued.
International Theatre Festival, an annual theatre festival that celebrates Kenyan theatre and also stimulates artists and audiences by bringing international acts from across the world to showcase theatre and also to interact and experience other cultures from around the world. It has been a fulfilling experience, growing each year, trying new things, experimenting with new activities and new ideas.
It actually creates opportunities for us to network further and get other opportunities.
You're coming to watch performance, you're coming to learn new culture, you're coming to interact with other people and create networks, know what others and where they are in terms of theatre, their productions, their technique.
Above all, it's in Africa and we just love Kenya. It's a beautiful country.
Previously on Theatre in Africa webinar.
I can start with the recent festival I did. For me to run like a few online live stuff, I had to go to use a conference hall, but again, I was limited to 30 people in a hall that sits about 5,000 or 3,000 people.
The fact that theatre, arts and performance has not been held and regarded as highly as you asked, as you know, your medicine, your law and all the other professions. Therefore, taking care of the theatre practitioners doesn't come really high on the priority list of how to reopen that economic space.
Well, at the moment, we're what we call stage 3 of our lockdown, and that enables us to have a maximum of 50 people in the audience. So our biggest theatre seats 1,069. So we won't be able to make any returns on any of the work that we put out. So what we have opted to do is really go for the online options. The whole thing is to have it, to record it in a way that really comes across strongly online.
My worry when it comes to virtual theater is when we create productions virtually, they can be accessed on YouTube, and you need you need data. If you're using your phone, you still need mobile data to access those productions. Those of us that that live in the cities maybe have some access to the internet. But what about people who don't have that kind of access?
It's really affected the situation, but now it's a little bit open. We have started performing 1 week ago only. We started to open the theaters for the audience under the conditions of 25% of occupation only. As most of you said, it's fully booked. That means the community is starving to see theater again and again.
Previously on Theatre in Africa webinar.
The COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating effect, not just on theater, but on the creative arts industry worldwide. But it doesn't mean that this is the end. This is the death of theater.
You know, during these uncertain times, it is critical that theatre makers avoid the urge to throw up their hands. I think, like Prof is saying, that we need to break some rules. We cannot be stuck with conventional theatre, but we need to act out of pure instinct.
Production not stopped during the COVID-19 pandemic, but festivals stopped. They stopped already. Many festivals, many events stopped, but the production not stopped because we already opened a new channel to all people in culture. So if we focus on the situation in Egypt about the theater, we will see that all events stopped, but culture not stopped.
The COVID experience for me, it's more like an emergency because the problems and the challenges we face, and of course the new innovative ways that the COVID situation has, offered us, have long, been begging for attention because TV, film, video, digital satellite have, served to be competitors to live theater for decades. And so the opportunity for us to explore the digital space, particularly in virtual theater, for me is a new opportunity. But this opportunity has to be properly looked at in a very holistic, sustainable way.
Up next on Theatre in Africa webinar.
Thank you very much for joining. My name is Kevin Kimani. I'm your host for today. Today we will be discussing and looking at how various governments in Africa have supported the industry. We started the series of webinars on the 22nd of July, discussing at where theater was in Africa before the pandemic and the effect of the pandemic to the theater industry in the country. And then we had the second webinar on the 29th of July, looking at creative ways in which theater can adapt to the pandemic and how we can continue enjoying and practicing what we know how to do best, and that is theater. And today we're looking at how governments across Africa have supported the art and the industry ways. We'll also be looking at how, in terms of policy, what government has in place. Part of what is affecting artists around the world is the issue of mental health. We know for us as artists, for us to thrive when people are there. We thrive when audience come to watch our shows. We thrive when we're able to attend rehearsals. So we'll be looking at how what policy, what the government is doing in that regard. We'll also be looking at how theater is structured in various countries in Africa, as well as looking at what is the contribution of theater to the DGP of various countries to make sure that even this increases. Also looking at how a government can support so that in Africa, theater artists can be regarded as a true profession.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic. Our panelists are Hassan Nur Hassan, Chief Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage; Dineo Puti, Director of Arts and Culture, Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Sports and Culture Development; Amy Frimpong, Executive Director, National Theatre of Ghana, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Republic of Ghana. Our moderator today is Kevin Kimani Kahuro, Festival Director, the Kenya International Theatre Festival and Secretary General of the African Theatre Union. Follow our conversation on our social media platforms: on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
For us to start this conversation as we await the other members of panelists, maybe I can start engaging Madam Amy and just to give you time to introduce yourself and tell us more about yourself and what you do as we wait for other members of the panel. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Amy Apia Frimpong, and I am currently the Executive Director of the National Theatre of Ghana. The National Theatre of Ghana was set up in 1992 through a law, and our mandate is to develop and promote the performing arts. We have a building that houses 3 performance spaces. The largest one seats 1,452. The second largest seats 500, and the smaller one is an amphitheater that seats about 250 people. We have 3 resident groups, professional resident groups representing the areas of music, dance, and drama. And in the last 5 years, we have a joint production that encompasses all the 3 resident groups. That's a major production for each year, but then each of the resident groups on its own also has a major production. And in brief, that's who we are.
Thank you very much. I can also see that you're privileged to have Mr. Hassan Nur Hassan, who is the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Sport, Culture and Heritage in Kenya. And just to give also Honorable Hassan this time to introduce yourself and who you are and the role of the ministry. Just a brief introduction about yourself as we want to start this webinar.
Thank you so much. As you have rightly said, my name is Honorable Hassan Nur Hassan. I am the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage. I am the Deputy Minister Minister for Sports in Kenya. In this country, they call it Chief Administrative Secretaries. I deputize for Honorable Ambassador Amina, who is out of the country in Geneva, hopefully going to clinch WTO position as the Director General. And I'm stepping in to represent her. And my work basically is to provide support and guidance to the Cabinet Secretary and be her deputy in matters relating to policy coordination and the general mandate of the ministry is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. And I want to go straight into the webinars. And I want to start with Madam Ami. Kindly tell us, give us a brief structure of how theatre is structured within the government in Ghana, and what is the link between the theatre industry and government?
The National Theatre is the professional theatre for the country of Ghana. As I said before, it was established by law and it's a government subvented agency, which means that basically the staff at the theatre are salaried staff. So they are on a salary, even though they are professionals. They receive the basic salary, depending on what happens, they have some entitlements. We also have a commission on culture that has the broader perspective of looking at everything culture, but the National Theatre is focused on just the performing arts area. And then recently, about 5 years ago, the ministry changed so to include, it went to tourism, culture, and creative arts. And so right now we have a Creative Arts Council that has been established just to look at the activities and works of the creative arts sector.
Thank you very much. And just maybe I can continue to ask this. You say that you have 3 resident groups, 3 professional theatre
yes,
that are on salary in the National Theatre in Ghana. How do you work with other independent theatre artists in Ghana?
And so we look at the broad spectrum. We are not looking at just the playwrights that work for us. So as I said, our mandate is to develop and promote the performing arts. So the professional groups are just one medium, but all the work that we do, we support the performing arts ecosystem in the country. So we're not just focused on the professional groups, but we're looking at all the performing arts group. The professional groups are put in place so that it will be able to capture the very best that we have into that professional group so that they can project our culture both here and outside the country.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
Let me come to Honorable Hassan. Kindly tell us how theatre is structured in the Kenyan government, and basically what is the link between theatre industry and the government?
You know very well, culture is a devolved function. We've devolved culture all the way to the county governments. So county governments provide the major backing for theatre arts at the county level. At the national level, the ministry provides policy direction and other requirements and support for the performing arts. For example, if you look at the Kenya Cultural Center, it's a parastatal, is a semi-autonomous parastatal under the Ministry of, under the State Department of Culture. It's run by a board of management, it's run by a board of council that helps and supports theatre arts in their performance at the Cultural Center. The Cultural Center provides a very old center. We have managed to give it a facelift. All artists who want to come and showcase and come and train have been provided an opportunity to be given a space where they can be able to do it. Of course, the ministry helps in policy direction. The ministry equally supports in providing funding to cases where groups have excelled, to cases where they want to do their own productions. We have the Presidential Music Commission that has got a complete studio where our artists can come and train and also do their recordings in that place under the guidance of technical and highly qualified and specialized artists at technical officers. And therefore, we have a full-fledged State department in the Ministry of Culture. The department deals with both all manner of artists. It provides guidance, it provides support. It's a one-stop shop for them. It provides registration as and when they need it. It also gives support to teams that are going out of the country to showcase their talents. And therefore, we have cultural festivals that take place in the entire country, in literally every region, every county. Our policy is to encourage all counties to make sure that cultural festivals take place on an annual basis in all these counties. And the ministry will provide a little bit a token of support during these festivals as and when the county governments prepare these festivals. And therefore, culture is really deeply enshrined in our system, and the ministry is fully involved into the day-to-day affairs of artists.
Let me come back to Madam Ami Afiam. What is the contribution of theatre, maybe in general, apart from the creative arts? You have figures of what is the contribution of theatre arts to Ghana's GDP, and what are the factors behind that?
We do not have any conclusive data. We haven't collected the impact on GDP. It is one of the things that we were going to do this year. It was on our to-do list until all of this happened. But I also want to add, because I focused on the National Theatre, but don't forget we also have the Commission on Culture. And the Commission on Culture has 10 centers for national cultures spread out in every region of the country. And they support mostly the grassroots, but we work in tandem with them to nurture and grow these emerging groups and I'll say more localized groups, so that they'll be better prepared to stage their work or prepare for performances as and when they are needed.
Okay, thank you. And maybe you can tell us how your government is structured. Is it just the national government, or you have devolved system of government?
We have they all report to the presidency, but we used to have 10 regions. Just last year, more regions were divided, so now we have 16, and so we now have to come up with cultural centers for the remaining 6. But so we have the district, the municipal level, the district level, regional level, and then the national level. And at all of these levels, there are arts officers, district arts officers, municipal arts officers that are working with the different arts groups across the nation.
So, in the different regions that you have mentioned, what role is government playing to ensure that there are professional theatre spaces in all those regions, so that more artists on the grassroots level can be able to be nurtured?
There are a couple of things that we do. As I said, the commission actually has the registry for all of the arts groups, whether they are amateurs or professionals. In all the regions, they are supposed to register with them. We also have specific genre groups, like we have a group of the Society for Concert Parties, and Concert Party is a uniquely Ghanaian art form. And so they have their own society and they create their own, they have their own network, and we work with them. So for instance, if we want to do a concert party event in a region, we work in partnership with the society to identify the right group, because they are all amateur groups, and then we work with them and then come up with a production that then we take on the road. We have the visual arts groups has different groups all over the place. We have a music which represents the music sector, and they also have different districts groups as well as regional. So it's a combination of a lot of effort from a lot of different groups.
Thank you very much. Let me come to Honorable Hassan, and basically I'll ask the same question. What is the contribution of theatre to Kenya's GDP, and what are the factors behind it?
Just like it is the case in Ghana, as my sister has just put it, the contribution from art to the national economy it's immense. However, there's no data available so far. There's no clear data of how much is generated from theater arts into the national economy. But there's no doubt, going by the number of youth and the number of interest that we have seen developing in arts, in theater arts, there's so much potential, and there's so much room for development, and there's so much room for improvement. However, no data is so far has been generated. So there's need for collaborative effort between players and government to document and to generate tangible data data that can show the contribution to the GDP. Unfortunately, we don't have it now, but the ministry is in the process of organizing stakeholder forums where this data can now be collected. The data that may exist is maybe some data that has been collected by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. That may not be fairly authentic because no complete fieldwork has so far been done. It's an assumptive data for now. Therefore, it is a gray area that we are looking at. And as a ministry, we are fully involved and engaged to make sure that data is completely compiled.
If I may add to that, I think that one of the most important things in terms of data gathering is that the works are not just within the arts sector, but the impact that we have. So for instance, when I talk about it, I talk about if I'm going to a performance as a female, I will sew a dress, I will do my makeup. All of these sectors are being supported because of the one event. So when we do that, begin to collect that data, it is not just in the arts sector, but it goes beyond. All the people, the jobs that are created, maybe those who are packing. I have at the theater, there's been a lady here who sold popcorn since the theater was built. And that is her primary job. It has nothing to do with the arts, but because we exist, she exists as well. So when we are collecting the data, I think that we need to be very mindful about our reach and not just look within our arts community, because our impact is more than that.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
Thank you very much. And from speaking from that, I want to bring Honorable Hassan into this. And I'll borrow a case of my experience as a festival organizer in the Kenya International Theatre Festival, where we normally bring international guests and coming into the country, and they spend a lot of money during the time that they're in Kenya. What is the government doing to ensure that we are able to link this connection between the international trade or international linkages and exporting our culture, and specifically we want to be biased with theatre? How can we be able to support and exchange culture and theatre specifically in Africa? And maybe for this case, we can just borrow from the two governments that are here represented here. What is your comment, Honorable Hassan?
Thank you very much. The question of theatre arts export out of the country has not been very, very successful. It's always been driven, personal initiative driven, group driven. Of course, export of art has always been seen as an export of theatre arts to Europe or the Americas or beyond. And I think it's the highest time we start focusing on theatre arts across the African continent. In the regional sector ourselves, we've seen quite a lot with the comedians have been holding quite a lot of performances in the entire region of East African community. And therefore, this is quite encouraging. And by the numbers that attend those shows of the competition between the comedians in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi and the region, you've seen the crowd it carries. And therefore, I agree with you that there is need to refocus on our theatre arts across within the African continent and see how we can be able to go. Unfortunately, we have not been able to focus in that direction. We have always focused on our theatre arts in the festivals that we see across in Europe, the tourism exhibitions that take place in those regions. That's where our focus has been. And as my sister has said again, it's because of the effect, the multiplier effect theatre arts have when you hold it across other exhibitions in Germany or in other areas. And therefore, we look forward towards a day when we're able to do that within the African continent.
Madam Ami, what is your take on this?
I couldn't agree with Honorable more. In fact, one of the things that I have been hoping to do is to create a touring circuit, because you see, when you're going to one country, the costs are exorbitant. But if I know that I come to East Africa, I'm performing in 5 or 6 different countries, then it brings the cost of travel down and makes it much more interesting for us to do so. I've been having conversations with Nigeria, because they are our closest Anglophone country on the West Coast. And we have done some things. Now, in 2018, for World Theatre Day, we traveled to Nigeria. and had a performance with them and traveled to some of their regions, but we weren't able to do much. But I want to see us, instead of taking all our performances outside, for us to share our experiences within the continent, so that when you leave Kenya and you come to Ghana, you can do Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, so that the cost of bringing the troop over is spread over these performances, and then it will be beneficial to you. It's actually the cost of touring that makes it very challenging. I even want to go beyond that, that when we have these experiences, there should also be cultural exchanges. And I would love to see a time when there's a group of Africans from different countries presenting work outside that shows our differences, yet is also showing our similarities within the culture.
Maybe just to add something there. A case example is the JamaFest festival that we hold annually within the East African Community region. The JamaFest festival is a festival that brings together the entire East African community, and we hold this festival every year without failure. Last year we had it in Tanzania. This year we are likely to have it in Uganda. It's fairly a very successful festival, and it has really opened up theater arts and other cultural activities in the region. It is the place where we showcase our cultural talents and prowess in the region. And it's very fulfilling when you really attend those festivals and see what Rwanda has to provide, what Uganda has to provide. It's, especially in the theater arts industry, it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to raise this, and I also see part of one of our attendees is raising that question of the cost of accommodation. And we all know there is a UNESCO convention that encourages hosting governments to provide accommodation for any cultural event taking place. What is the various governments doing? And I want to start with Honorable Hassan, as the Deputy Minister for Culture. How far is the government of Kenya in terms of hosting and taking the cost of the accommodation for any international event in terms of art? Because accommodation is a key issue that is a con, because when you travel to a country with let's say a troop of 10 people and you have to stay there 10 days, the cost is very high. So what can we do as government to make sure that if there is an international team coming from Ghana to Kenya, what can the government of Kenya do?
For the teams that are going outside the country, if the government is fully involved, like the JamaFest, of course, the total cost is provided by the ministry, because as every country will provide for its teams. And so when our teams go out to Tanzania, go to Uganda or other neighboring countries, the government fully stands and pays for their transportation and their accommodation in those areas. However, what may not be very clear is if there are international teams coming into the country, then proper protocols have to be put in place between ourselves and the sending teams, the sending country, so that an arrangement can be prepared. I must admit that in the past, we've had very low funding in areas towards culture. And this is because culture has been devolved, and therefore the ministry provides policy direction. However, from last year, the president in his wisdom began a special fund that is called the Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund. That fund is meant to provide support to artists and sportsmen and women, and also other social development programs. There's nothing that bars the artists of this country to benefit from that fund. The fund is still in the initial stages. We're just beginning this year. It's about a year old. And therefore, these are areas of possibilities that we are, as a ministry, looking at in future so that they can be supported, as the support is also being given to the sportsmen and women of this country when they go out to represent Kenya in international fora.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
Thank you. Let me come to you, Madam Ami. What is your take on that? Does the government of Ghana provide accommodation to international troops coming? Or what support is there to any group that wants to report that outside Ghana?
No, and I think that we need to look at the different kinds of groups that we have, because we are all not the same. There can be a group representing the country, and if you are representing the country, there are certain perks that come with it. Maybe your accommodation will be covered, or that well regards. But let's say if you're a commercial group traveling outside to do your own performances, there is no support. Unfortunately, the arts is always the one thing that we all talk about as being important, but we never set money aside to support the arts and culture. And it's not unique to Africa, it's the whole world over. If you look at government budgets, the first thing to always go is the arts. That's the first cut. We always get the first cut. So we need to begin. I mean, we can advocate, but if the government is saying the money is not there, the money is not there, and you can't always rely solely on the government. So what are the other ways that maybe we can partner with the host country? Or we need to be creative. We're creative people, let me put it that way, on how we are touring. I don't think accommodation is the only major cost. It is one of the costs. Even the traveling, whether you are flying or driving, there are costs associated with it. And that can be high when you are traveling with equipment and all of that. Meals is another big one, so we need to look at it in totality. So when I talk about touring costs, I'm talking about everything, not just accommodation. And that in itself can be a barrier to all the dreams that an arts organization has. I think that if there is a fund that can support, that you can go to and get some support for touring, that would be great. But what would be the sort of restrictions on the fund? If you do take it and you come back, it's the percentage of sales they get, and depending on the type of arts organization you are, it might be very different, So we can't talk about it in wide broad strokes because there are different kinds of arts organizations, and we need to look at them, to look at the peculiarity of every situation.
Thank you. And just to remind all attendees that you can join the conversation on Twitter. We're using the hashtag #TheatreAfrica. And with that, I want to bring the discussion closer to COVID-19. And we all know what COVID has done to the arts and has done to the economy of the world at large. And art has not been spared because, especially theater, we fully depend on live audience. We depend on people coming together. And that is what the guidelines of coping with the COVID are totally against. You cannot congregate. The directives are not favorable for theater. So what has your government done to support theater artists in this COVID-19 period? We can start with Honorable Hassan.
Thank you very much. As we all know, COVID-19 as a pandemic has not left any sector of the economy. It has affected every aspect of our life, and the art sector has never been spared. And just to pick up to where again, I keep on referring to my sister's view, is about the level of funding by government to art. Art is considered as also considered as a peripheral part of government process. And therefore, the social development the Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund has allocated only 5% to funding of arts in the country. Whereas social development, where universal healthcare and others are included, is about 65%. Sports is not more than 35%. Universal healthcare and other social programs, not more than 65%, more than 60%. Art, not more than 5%. That shows the level of funding that government always gives to arts. Now, on 6th of April, this year, our President, His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, through a government directive, asked the Social Development Fund to provide support to the artists of this country. In fact, they are the first people the President considered for support during this pandemic. And he provided 100 million shillings, that's an equivalent of about slightly above $1 million, to be given to the artists in this country. And together with the ministry, we roll out a program that's called Together at Home. This program went out of its way to look for artists up to the grassroots level and provide support to them. They are supposed to do production. The production is recorded. If it is worthy of airtime, it is sold. Of course, they can sell it to the media houses in the country. So we have created a production van under the Presidential Music Commission Group and the Department of Culture that goes around and vets and looks at their production and pays them money and give them money. And so far, we have already been able to cover over 1,200 artists across the country, where support has been provided for. The support ranges from 100,000, others get about 200,000, others get about 50,000, others get about 25,000. Smaller groups get about 25,000 Kenya shillings. And therefore, this is the support we are running, and we expect to run this program the next few years. When the government began this, a lot of other corporate bodies also came on board. A lot of other private organizations came to support the artists of this country. And this is the time when we are very careful on their production so that we control the issue of piracy during this season, when they are all out to make production at least for a pay. And also they can be able to get this production onto the media houses to air them and pay them without exploiting them.
So, Amy, kindly tell us, what has the government in Ghana done to push on theater artists during this pandemic?
Okay, so in the beginning, I did say that the artists at the National Theatre were all on government payroll, and they have been continuously been paid during this period. In the media budget, the government announced a 15 million CD stimulus for the creative arts sector, and that's roughly $10 million that is yet to be distributed. But for us as the theatre, I'll begin and I'll go beyond that. So for us as the theatre, what we decided to do is to take advantage of this period, do short educational skits on COVID in the different languages that we have in Ghana, and then share on social media and also on our website. So we have all of that there. We've encouraged virtual performances, and a lot of the artists are now warming up to virtual performances. The monetization of those virtual performances have become a problem. So we're trying to work out the kinks, and then we will take it from there. But overall, I think we're all organizing and looking at, we're hoping that it will end soon, but we're trying to look at what if, how long can this go on, and looking at what's happening outside, because I know that some major theaters in the UK and the US have already pushed their season to the end of the first quarter of 2021. And so if we use that as a guideline, it means it's going to be really hard for us to do anything at this point. We are looking at opening up smaller spaces that are more like amphitheaters to see if we can have performances over there. But we also know that when the churches opened, even though they were open, people were not going. So you can have the performances and people will not show up. So we are treading cautiously and looking at what options we have and how we can still be able to move forward and earn and live within the sector that we're working in. So that's what we have.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
I think this is encouraging to see that the government in Kenya and Ghana have set aside a stimulus package for artists and to cushion them, and that is good money. From I think 10 million US dollars and $1 million US dollars respectively. It's a good amount of money, and I'm sure artists are benefiting a lot. And I want to bring in Ms. Puti, who is the Director of Arts and Culture in the Ministry of Youth and Culture in Botswana. Kindly introduce yourself and tell us more of how theatre is structured within the ministry, the kind of work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry to join the meeting a bit late. My name is Dinau Puti. I'm the Policy Specialist, Arts and Culture in the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Sport and Culture Development. What we look at is in terms of theatre development. We do have programs that relate to the development of theatre in general. We have activities that take place on an annual basis where theatre activists are given a platform to enter into an annual competition. The competition starts at the district level, then it goes up to national level, then ultimately the winners are given a platform to be given the prizes by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Botswana. Then we also have a grant facility, which we assist different organizations or individuals relating to the different activities. It can be capacity building, it can be whatever activities that they want to undertake in terms of theatre development. And all these, it will depend on the different organizations or the different groups that want to undertake these type of activities. So basically, in a nutshell, that is what we do in terms of empowerment of the theatre activists. We also have a TV channel as a ministry, where we give a platform to practitioners to be able to enter into different activities that can produce film and television productions. And these are mainly geared for the youth. And we have a facility in terms of funding where it is mainly designated for local content, 100% local content. And that is something that is encouraged in the sector in terms of development and in terms of, going forward in terms of what they want to do. Then in terms of what we are doing now regarding the current status that we are in is we came up with a relief fund looking at the status of the different artists in the country and looking at the way in which the pandemic has impacted on everybody, even more on the creatives. On the creatives because venues have been closed, contracts have been disrupted. So what we did is to come up with a relief fund, and they were making applications, and the applications were considered by different panels, starting in the districts, then to national level. And the different practitioners were able to get allowances in terms of wage subsidies for 3 months starting April, May, June. They were able to indicate how much they've lost in terms of the loss due to the lockdown or the closing of their businesses during the pandemic. And there were also those who have registered in terms of them being artists, registered either with the Copyright Society of Botswana or registered because, like I was saying, we have an annual activity where we have a competition. We took all those who had registered for 2020, knowing that we are not going to be able to undertake the activity, and we're able to assist them with funding for their loss of income. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What is the contribution of theatre or art in general to the Botswana GDP?
Unfortunately, we currently don't have a specific figure for the theatre industry, but I can say that for the creatives, we have a 5.4 for the GDP currently, and we are working towards, see more coming from the creative sector, because we are currently working on the creative industry strategy, which will soon be finalized. Unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we're not able to finalize it as we had wished, but very soon we'll be able to do that. But we try by all means to encourage practitioners to see themselves as industry players who can contribute towards economic diversification, who can create jobs for themselves, and who can really contribute to the GDP of the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I want to come back to Honorable Hassan, and I'll ask this question across the panel. What are governments doing to ensure that once COVID is contained, that theatre is able to thrive again, bearing in mind that we also experience as Africa a lower theatre going culture? What policy, let me say it in terms of policy, what is being put in place to make sure that once COVID is contained, theatre is able to boom again and also to continue putting food on the table for very many artists and young people across Africa?
Thank you very much. Of course, it's true that COVID-19 has come up with serious challenges, and theatre art has not been spared in this case. We are, of course, looking at as even the COVID is ravaging the entire world. We're not going to just wait and say, because of COVID, we can't move. As a ministry, we are looking at seeing whether we can be able to survive through the COVID period. And for us to do that, we're looking at whether there are possibilities of coming back to activities within the theater arts. We're already doing that in sports. Unfortunately, theater arts is about numbers and audiences and performances. That may be the challenge. But the training bit of it, the training to make sure that our artists don't go off air, to make sure that they do not lose the talent that they have, then we are trying to come up with protocols to make sure that artists can continue training, can continue performing, even if they don't have audiences for now. And if there are audiences, then what kind of audiences can we provide? Is it virtual audiences? Is it going to be audiences that are tailor-made for the purpose of the creative arts sector? And therefore, our worry is not about after COVID. Our worry is within the COVID period. How are our artists going to survive during this period so that they do not completely lose track? They did not completely lose the earnings they used to earn and therefore go off the stage. Therefore, the biggest challenge for us as a ministry now is to have the artists on the stage, COVID or no COVID. That really is our challenge. And we are trying to partner up with private sector and everybody else who is interested in support of theater arts to help in this situation so that our artists remain on the stage. Thank you.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
Thank you very much. This is very encouraging, and I'm sure a lot of people watching are very encouraged by this. To see that governments are thinking also within COVID how we can thrive. Madam Apia, what is your take on this, and what is the government in Ghana doing to ensure theatre continues?
I totally agree with Honorable Hassan. And I said earlier that we have begun to explore the virtual performances. For a period of about 3 weeks, we shut down. And then when we came back, we saw the difference. We saw that the artists were more laid back. So we quickly reverted and figured out how to have fewer people on stage at any given time. It is so hard to put up productions and still practice social distance on stage, because you get into the mood and you have to remember that you have to keep your distance. So all of these needs rehearsals. The other thing that we've also tried to do is to open up our rehearsal process. For the resident groups, for instance, what we've done is we've asked them all to showcase their solo performances, to show what they as individuals bring to the group. So we're looking at different ways of always engaging them in sort of a competition, but not really a competition, where they are pushing themselves as individuals and as small groups, so that whatever skills that they have, they're keeping to it, whatever regime that they have practiced in the past, they still keep doing it, even if they are not in the building. And once we share it, we also hear from other groups that are outside the building that, wow, this is really important for us to do it. And if you are doing it at the theater, then we're also encouraged to do it wherever we are.
Thank you. And I want to bring Ms. Puti. What is happening in Botswana? What policies are being put in place to ensure that theatre continues to thrive?
Thank you very much. We really, like other colleagues have already indicated, we are trying by all means to come up with programs that are going to fit the new normal, because now we have to talk about the new normal. So what we've started doing now, we've come up with a program where we are including most of the sectors or the genres. And during the July session, mid-July, we started with other sectors such as traditional instruments. We did contemporary music. Now we were thinking that we were going to move to other genres, but unfortunately now we are in lockdown for 2 weeks. And this thing is also, really disturbing in some way. But we want to see visual performances, as already indicated. And we want, or the approach that we wanted to use was to record, then be able to air on national television. And the channel that I talked about, saying it's under the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Sport and Culture Development. So these are the types of programs that we want to undertake, and further be able to hold some capacity building activities during this period to see whether it's possible to do them through the virtual mode, so that we are able to keep the sector afloat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And something that has come out very clearly is that theatre needs to go virtual so that we are able to continue practicing. And this is something that I think all the three panelists who are here have agreed to that. The question here, and there is somebody who was also asked, how can governments be able to support theatre artists to go online? And this is the question is, how do you as government officials in charge of theatre, or ministry that is concerned with theatre or other arts, how can we link with the ministry concerned, let's say for example, Ministry of ICT, so that these activities can be supported or sponsored by the government, and they can be able to reach more people in terms of even, and this is something that came out in our last webinar, that yes, we can go virtual, but what is the connectivity rate in Africa? How many people are we going to reach? Will this now again transform to an art for them? So I have two questions. Is it possible but the National Theatre in Ghana, the Department of Arts and Culture in Botswana, and the Ministry of Culture in Kenya, is it possible that you can link theatre artists with the Ministry of ICT so that they can get this support? And question number two, what is the connectivity rate? Once you go virtual, will theatre now become an art for the elite, or will a lot of people be able to get it? I think we can start with Madam Amy.
That's a very difficult question, because I know that the arts always fall at the bottom. In these times, governments are stressed. So you have to make a case for why you should be funded. And everyone is running around trying to figure out what to do. I think that from where I sit, we've already taken the initiative to contact organizations and individuals to help us with the virtual performances. I think once the government sees that these things are possible, then when you ask for the funding, sometimes, just sometimes, it is easy for you to get that money. I often tell people that within this performing arts sector, we have a language that we speak, and that language is very difficult for others who are not immersed in it to understand. And so when we're talking to people, sometimes it feels like we're hitting a wall. So we need to do some of the work to show what we're capable of to be able to get the funding, because all the governments are stressed at this point. There's very little money, and there's a lot to do with the money. I believe that with the 50 million stimulus in Ghana, we're taking a step forward, and therefore we just need to make sure that we prove that this investment that is being taken in the arts is really worthwhile, and that is going to create more jobs, it's going to empower people to do the right thing, and all of those good things. The Ministry of Technology that we have in Ghana, we've already approached, but sometimes when you do things on a ministerial level, it can take forever. It's more direct when you deal with people individually, and that's what we've decided to do. The monetization of the virtual performances is the issue for us at this point, because people sign up and you think they're going to make the payment, till the day of the performance, and then when the performance starts, they cancel. So it's really been hard to monetize, and there are people, those who are purists, who want to be in the theater for that experience, don't feel that they are having the experience that they would like to have. And so there's some education that needs to happen before that. On the other end, we are also being very careful, because we don't want people to think that once we go online, that is going to be what is going there for the future, because we've been having challenges bringing people to performing arts spaces because people are very comfortable with their personal devices and want to watch everything in the comfort of their home. So we need to balance it and to talk about that communal feeling you get when you are there with a group of people and directly reacting to what is happening on stage, because it's a different kind of an experience that you would have on your personal device. So we're doing both, but we need to manage both. Otherwise, who knows?
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
Okay, thank you. I want to bring Honorable Hassan. Is it possible to link theatre artists in Kenya with the Ministry of ICT or support such platforms that will enable to take theatre online and be able to monetize? And when that happens, will theatre now become an art of the elite? Those who can afford the internet, those who have phones.
Thank you very much. It's really a very interesting question, whether we can virtualize theatre arts. That really is a challenge. We know very well we are in a society that has completely transformed. We have moved from going to theatre to have the feel of being in a theatre as performance is being done. I'm sure those of you who are an ardent interested parties of theatre arts will know very well the kind of feeling you get when you watch a play on stage. It feels that you are part of the play as and when you are there. Unfortunately, the generation we have, the millennial generations who are now the majority, are generations that are hooked to their IT devices, and they want to watch these things or everything from the comfort of their small space. This really is a challenge. If we have to go the digital way and the virtual way, then the question of how to monetize that process is quite a while for us in Africa. It will take time for us to accept that you can monetize the virtual performances on art. However, we have had two commissions that have recently moved from the Ministry of Culture to the Ministry of ICT, and that is the Kenya Film Commission and the Kenya Film Classification Board. Those two parastatals moved from the Ministry of Culture. They work very closely with us. They help in performances. They help in recording performances. They look at the content of performances, whether they are consumable by society or not. The contents have to be verified, and therefore we are really in close contact with those two organizations that are now domiciled within the ICT ministry, that have been with us for all the years, that take care of productions and supporting artists in their production system. The question of connectivity in this country, whether virtual art is it an elitist sector or is a sector for the mass and everybody else? That fairly is challenging. Of course, when it comes to the mobile telephony, this country's penetration is fairly very, very, very good in Kenya. We have very, very, very high percentage of mobile telephony users here. What we may not have is, do we have the smartphone system? Do we have the internet connectivity? That really is what we are seeing. And we saw recently when the President and the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure launched the loon balloons in Baringo, the excitement that are within the local population, the rural population, for being able to access the Wi-Fi process. Of course, Wi-Fis are not also cheap in our countries in Africa. They are fairly priced, and therefore that is also a challenge for us. But we're looking at those possibilities of going virtual, because again, it's going to be demand driven, because 65% of our population is below 35 years. They are the population that is interested in the virtual process of life, and therefore that's where we are.
Thank you. And I want to bring Ms. Puti again in Botswana. Where are we in terms of internet connectivity, and do you think that the government can do something to link the theatre artists?
In terms of internet connectivity, I think it is getting there, let me say, because most of the towns are mostly connected. And I need to share with you this, that I think the pandemic has brought some positives in terms of development of practitioners. For example, you look at the online performances that they bring, you realize that a lot of creativity is there in different platforms, and people that you wouldn't have thought were interested in the arts, they are very, very creative, keeping themselves and other people engaged in terms of what they experience in the different areas. And I have to also share that, like I said, we have a television channel as a ministry. It was in November that we went online streaming with the Botswana Fiber network. And this is a good partnership in the sense that we have different hotspots in the country. And this partnership can really assist in developing other sectors of the creative industries. So this is something that can be developed further. This is something that we can tap on in order to be able to capacitate the different practitioners in the respective areas for them to come up with different productions that they can manage. And the important thing is for government to support these initiatives. Like I've indicated, that there's a lot of initiatives that we've noted during these difficult times, and there is a need to nurture that and be able to come up with more organized productions, more systematic productions that will be able to earn them something in the end. And even those who are not really creatives in the real sense, be able to now get into the sector to realize that the sector can bring them something and they can make a living out of it.
I want to also now bring this conversation to the role of theatre to the economy, the role of theatre to development, the role of theatre for social change. And we know this is not that strong. This is not the case in Africa. Theatre might be playing a big role, but government has not taken up such activity to use theatre for such things, for economic development, for social change. And in most cases, this is not the case. And the question is, how can you, who are the government officials in charge of theatre, who understand theatre, what role do you think you can play in convincing the government that theatre is a profession equal to a doctor, is a profession equal to a lawyer, so that emphasis is laid to the theatre artist and is able to be well looked upon by the government and also by the society, because most people look at theatre artists as just entertainers, people who when you tell them that you are a theatre artist, they'll ask you, what else do you do? But that is not the case when you say you are a lawyer. So what role are you playing to convince government and high top government officials that theatre is an actual trade and profession that can pay? And we can start with Madam Annie.
Very interesting question. When we have the performing arts, when we sell an emotional product, we don't provide a physical product. You don't get a can of Coke or a bottle of water. What we do touches you in a place where nobody sees. Everybody agrees with that. I often say that when you have an art experience, that art experience is your heart and soul. You will not go to the hospital and tell the doctor that your heart is hurting. It has other ways of telling you that your heart is hurting. But we all know that you need to take care of your heart. And so if you take your heart for granted, in the long run, you will suffer for it. And those people who are helping you take care of your heart should never, ever be marginalized. Everybody agrees with this when you talk to them. Yet when it comes to the funding decisions, when it comes to looking at the job that you do, you always have to talk for a very long time to convince people that what you do is worthwhile. I recently had a conversation with a much older lady who was complaining that the grandson was really into the arts and that she wanted him to do something else. And I had to tell her that, well, being in the arts doesn't necessarily mean being just on stage. There are different components. For us in the theater arts, the performing arts, the metaphor that I use to describe our work is that it is like starting a business on your own without knowing where the money is coming from, who you're going to be working with, right, you have no room for failure. And that is what we do. When we start a production, you have your managers, you have your carpentry, you have your set designers, you have your lawyers. Think about all the different ways that one gets engaged in the arts. So you can be a lawyer and still be an arts lawyer. That's a worthy profession. So I think we need to educate people about the various components of our work and stop talking about using the arts language where we assume that everybody should know because we know, because we need to break it down for people to understand. It's a business venture. If you're talking about entrepreneurship, this is the place. It's for someone to start and end a business. And there's no room for failure. You have to be successful because at the end of 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whenever, there has to be a production. And we are the miracle workers to do it. So we can't be downplayed.
Let me come to Madam Puti. What is your take? What role do you think you have to play to convince the top decision makers?
I think Madam Amy has really nailed it, like saying we need to really not assume that everybody understands the value of the arts, because that is where we face a lot of difficulties in terms of getting the funding, in terms of getting the support that we really need in order for us to facilitate our practitioners. So what we need as administrators in the sector, we need to develop robust policies, legislation that will really, put things in perspective so that our different governments are able to see the benefits of the industries that we are talking about. Because most of the time, like she's rightly said, you'll have difficulty in trying to convince people that what you are talking about can bring some great jobs, can contribute to the economy. So we need to have different structures that will be able to bring these results to the fore, the results being tangible, so that our governments can, readily understand, can readily know the benefits of investing in the sector. And as for the practitioners, we really need to come up with programs that will benefit them in the end, that will really make them be able to bring their voice up so that everybody can understand what they are all about. Everybody can understand why they want public funds to be invested in whatever they want to undertake. I think that is where we need to really put a lot of efforts into.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
I want to bring Honorable Hassan. What role do you think you as a deputy minister have to play to convince, let's say, the president to increase the funding of the arts and culture fund from 5% to 16%, so that they can keep them in what we do?
Very well. I think this is, first of all, I wanted to go on record that the president, in his own wisdom, is very supportive in supporting arts. And that's why he found it necessary to support artists first during this pandemic. The stimulus package that he rolled out, the first group that he thought about and the group that he gave were the artists. What we have made it only that the COVID-19 has really become a big obstacle this year. We have the annual performing arts and music festival that takes place at the national level amongst all our schools, colleges, universities, and everywhere. And at the final end of this performance, it is His Excellency the President who normally is the chief guest, and it's always held in State House in most cases. The reason why we have the President as the chief guest during these ceremonies is to make sure he empathizes and finds the role of artists in their performing and be able to continue supporting them. And therefore, these are some of the ways of letting people realize what it means. The ministry equally has started a campaign that is targeting the funding, the improved funding for artists at the county level. So as a ministry, we're engaging counties through the Governors Council. All governors have been advised
and have been pushed by the ministry and by the national government to make sure that they provide sufficient funding for the artists in the country. There is no doubt that art is still a peripheral unit out there in policy making decisions. But it's also important to realize that artists are very dear to the Kenyan population. Of course, we have segments of artists. We have the older artists. Recently in Kenya, we lost a very popular artist, Papa Shirandula, one of the most brilliant comedians this country has ever produced. His death last 2 weeks ago really touched the heart and soul of everybody in this country. It just shows how people have adapted to art in this country. Therefore, the general population is there in support of artwork and artists. But at the policy level, we still have quite a challenge. We still have a challenge, and as a ministry, we are addressing the challenge through the National Treasury to make them realize that Papa Shirandula, the greatest comedian and actor who worked on our soil, is the same way as the best gynecologist we have in this country. And therefore, this is going to come up. It's time. We will take a bit of time before we realize these two professionals are equal to each other. As my sister had said, it really touches the heart and the soul and the mind of the individual. We still have quite some latitude to cover, but we are on course.
As theater, and we've seen that, and it has come out clear, and I think in Honorable Hassan's remarks on the Arts and Culture Fund that a lot of money is going to the health. But we are seeing that artists at this time, they are not able to go and rehearse. They are not able to go and perform. And this has led to a lot of artists undergoing issues of mental health. And we are seeing that emphasis is being laid by government, especially on issues of mental health. What is the link between such issues, and how can theatre be used to spread this message of mental health? That is question number one. Question number two is what are you doing in your respective governments to make sure that we address this issue of mental health among theatre artists? We can start with the Honorable Hassan.
You've rightly said that the health sector takes the biggest part of the budget, and definitely out of this budget, matters of mental health is covered. Of course, we have a very robust policy on mental health under the Ministry of Health, and therefore our artists stand to benefit from whatever is available within the Ministry of Health policy. However, as the ministry, we are concerned about the state of affairs of the mental health of our artists during this COVID-19 pandemic, because of isolation, because of confinement, because of lack of training and lack of performance and lack of earnings too. So we're very cautious, and our officers in the field have always all been put on high alert to be able to address these matters as and when they arise. These are also cross-cutting issues between ourselves and the Ministry of Health. We're looking forward to that engagement where it is everybody's business to make sure that all Kenyans during this period who are facing the challenge of mental health are addressed. That really is our position.
And just maybe the second question is there something being done between the Ministry of Sports and Culture and the Ministry of Health to make sure that theatre is used with these messages of COVID and also other issues of mental health?
Very well, thanks. You are right that during this time, we have quite a very strong campaign that is going around in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. The stimulus package that was given to the artists is not just money dished out. It's money given to them on production of items on COVID and the effects of COVID on the national population. And therefore, these productions are out, and therefore we are working closely with the Ministry of Health to make sure that this production reach the audiences of Kenyans so that they can be able to benefit from this talent by artists during this time. Therefore, this linkage is there.
Thank you very much. And I want to go to Emmy. The issue of mental health. What are you doing to make sure that artists in Ghana are well taken care of? And also, is there a link between your ministry and also the Ministry of Health in terms of using theatre to spread this message of mental and also pass the message of containing COVID and such activities?
I'll take you back a little because we've had this conversation before, and there are artists who are on two sides of the fence. There are artists who believe that their work should not always be guided by somebody else's demand, and that arts should be supported. We don't have to go through health or education to get funded for the arts. The arts in itself should be supported so they are free to do whatever they want to do. And then there's the other group that says, okay, we'll we're happy to work with other institutions to get the messages out, to do commissioning work and all that. So in 2018, we actually had a visiting artist over here who brought along a professor from the Ohio University who had opened up a clinic specifically designed for performing arts. And the whole idea behind the clinic is that the performing artists have unique injuries that needs attention and needs to be focused on. For instance, if a dancer came to your clinic and said their ankle was hurting, you shouldn't think maybe, any ordinary person getting that, because they do a lot of jumps, and therefore that injury will be different. So at the beginning of the year, we actually went into the partnership with our Ministry of Health. They provided us with a physiotherapist so we could open the clinic on site. And as part of that, we also had a staff person from their mental health institution coming to begin to gather data on not just our artists, but any artist who was able to come to talk about some of the issues that are unique to performing artists, because they felt that we work in a very unique situation and therefore we had unique needs that had to be addressed in different ways. And so we already had started that relationship when once again COVID happened. So it's been pushed to the back burner, but it is something that we hope to continue. Also, what we do often is when we celebrate the international days, we always go into partnership with underserved communities. And so we will do performances with maybe a school with students who have mental issues, a school with students who have physical issues. So it is ongoing work that we've been doing over the period of time. We felt that in this COVID period, we needed to get some work out there to people to view, especially those who are by themselves, so that at least their senses are engaged during the period. And that's why we've been putting a lot of our skits on our website. And so, at the end of this, I can send you the link to our website so you can share with people. But we have a lot of skits over there that people can go to and then view.
And I want to bring Madam Puti, and again, issue of mental health. And you have programs that address issues of mental health among theatre artists in Botswana, and also in terms of policy and network between your ministry and the Ministry of Health, especially during this time of COVID-19, to create that awareness of COVID?
The issue not really formalized in a sense, but the Ministry of Health gets different practitioners to be able to do different messages regarding the pandemic. During the pandemic, most of the organizations, both government and private sector, they started having the CHI officers, that is the health and safety officers, so that they look at the different sectors to see how they can best provide counseling for different entities that relate to the different sectors. And in our case, we also have, as a ministry, we work closely with arts associations, and the arts associations during the pandemic, we got into discussions with them to try to see what is happening in terms of the different clientele, so that we are able to know how to give support to them using the ministry CHI officer, so that we are able to really provide whatever counseling that we have. And the different offices that we have around the country, they are able to also give that support that the practitioners need in their respective localities.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
There are interesting comments being made by our attendees who are and our participants who are listening and watching us on this webinar. And there's an interesting question here posed by Dr. Cole, who says, how independent can theatre artists be when working with government. And we all know that theater artists express themselves and address issues that they feel found to the society. So the question is, do you think that as government you can work with theater artists and also give them the freedom to express themselves? We can start with Honorable Hassan.
Oh, theater artists have the right to air their productions. Kenya is a very free society. You can say anything, you can write anything. There has not been any situation where an artist has been hindered from developing his talents in whatever field. And therefore, the era of controlling and curtailing artists' performances is gone. This is a plural society. It's a society where your performances are meant to be, of course, very mature in nature, in content, so that you don't offend your other citizen. So this is really 100% a free society. Ours is a very, very strong democracy. The years of 1990s where you cannot caricature a president or a minister or a senior government person is no longer with us. We are about 20-something years behind that kind of situation. And therefore, I am sure our artists have had their full freedom to portray society in whatever form they feel like, whatever manner they feel like, so that they can be able to change it. So after all, through artwork, the society can mirror itself and change its bad ways if there are any. And therefore, working with government is very fulfilling for artists, because then we can be able to understand each other. We can be able to understand the environment within which we all operate and be able to be of guidance and support to our artists. And therefore, government and artists are Siamese twins. They are not going to leave each other anywhere soon. The question of controlling their content, that really is not ours. We leave it to them. We leave it to their judgment. We leave it to their, a proper artist, of course, knows what is good and what is bad for society. And therefore, we are there and we are happy. We've had a very good working relationship with all our artists in the country.
Thank you very much. And thank you for, I'm sure artists in Kenya will be very encouraged. And that's coming from a minister of the minister and the Ministry of Sports and Culture, and really encouraging that this collaboration and this is happening. Madam Ellis, is that the case in Ghana?
Yeah, I think that if you look at the comedy circuit, they are already performing and doing their own thing as artists. Arts and culture is not politics. Arts and culture is very separate from politics, and it's how you would do it, it's how you present it. Our perspective, from where I sit, there's no government intervention. We're free to do whatever we need to do. If there's any hesitation, it's actually coming on the part of the artist, because sometimes when some scripts come, people are a little hesitant because they don't know what will happen if they're on stage. But in terms of the government, and nothing so far.
Okay, thank you. Is that the case in Botswana?
It is the case in Botswana. Like I indicated, we have different annual community activities. We have government programs that are annual also. And in these programs, artists are allowed to come up with different themes, and they, perform whatever that is topical to them in terms of whatever that they want to portray in whatever specific time that they really want to share with their viewers. So it's really independent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge also a comment made by Dr. Kuli, and he says that we theatre artists need to pose our case to government so that we are able to receive funding, and a lot needs to come from us as theatre artists and practitioners to prove a case to the government. And this brings me to the next question. Will the various governments support theatre artists in Africa if they were to come together and work as a united industry in Africa? And I want to start with Madam Eni. Is it possible to support a union of all theatre artists across Africa in Ghana?
Sure. I think that it is a union that should be started by artists, managed by artists, with support from governments if possible, or private sector. I do believe that artists thrive on sharing ideas and sharing their artistic processes, and it is something that they're looking forward to. And when you present work in your host community, it is very different from when you present it outside. And therefore, I think that a lot of artists, if the avenue was made available to them, would like the networking they would have with other artists from all across the continent.
Okay. Honorable Hassan.
Thank you. I think it's not about if, it's when that should happen. When that should happen.
Yeah.
So it's not about the moment we start saying, will it happen? Then it brings now art lower. As a ministry, we've always said art is equivalent to any other profession. The talents in arts are the same talents that we get in the medical field, are the same talent that we get in the engineering field. Art is not any less a profession than any other profession. And therefore, we support the Union of Theatre Artists across Africa, not only across Africa, across regions and within the countries itself. We need to support the artists to come up and be able to find their voice within the society for which they do the presentations. Even the question of funding can only be had if the artists spoke themselves. It is only the wearer who knows where the shoe pinches. When artists make the sound, when they make the noise, then I'm sure everybody will listen to. So that really is a position.
Thank you. Madam Kuti.
Thank you. I think we support it 101% because it will really bring a lot of development to the sector. The artists will be able to speak in one voice. They will be able to share different views in terms of their different experiences. More networks will be strengthened. Sharing of experts in our respective countries. And like we've said, art is it unites people. So in doing this, in having a union, then we'll really be united and proud as Africans, or even going beyond.
Thank you. I want to bring in one attendee who has raised his hand. This is Dr. Cole, and I want to give him 30 seconds to ask his question. And we have two. We have Dr. Cole and we have Promise. So I will start with Dr. Cole. 30 seconds, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And my question really will be directed at the executive director of the Ghanaian theater. And I just quickly went to the YouTube that you posted of the fantastic work that has been done. And I noticed that there are just 85 views as of June when it was posted. And my question is, and it's to every of your other participants too, how can we create a humongous platform that African Americans can all click into, so that when you have a production like this, because clicks and it's about clicks and numbers of people who can access your work. And that in itself can bring about some funding. But when we all do it in this little fragmented way, we get 85, but when if there's a way in which somebody like what the brother here is doing to create that platform, that when you have something, we will have it. And then when it begins to generate the kind of traffic that we're looking for, the owners of a site will begin to recognize what we're doing. And advertisers will come and money will come. So this is my question. I have partly answered it myself from a layman's perspective, somebody totally outside of government. But those of you who are in government, probably you see further and deeper than the rest of us. Thank you very much indeed.
I want to allow Tommy, again, 30 seconds.
Thank you, Auntie Amy and other panelists from the African continent. Auntie Amy, my question goes to you. Would you say the COVID-19 situation is more of an emergency situation that we're dealing with today? And given the fact that in Ghana, thankfully, we've received some stimulus package from the government to support the Creative Arts Center, and that amounts to 50 million Ghana cedis. And that money in itself, the good news as it may be for most people, could as well become more like the usual stories we are used to if it is not put to good use. And by that, I mean particularly what measures can we put in place so that the precarious situations that all creative arts workers find themselves in can be approached in a much more sustainable manner, rather than approach this as COVID, which is likely to be overcome somehow, because we are working towards that, so that we deal with precarious, unsustainable issues existing in our structures and systems. So what measures can we put in place so that all artists, especially those that normally engage in temporary works, can benefit from that 50 million Ghana cedis? Because national theater workers are covered; those are the centers of national culture. both at the regional and district levels are also covered. But what about the artists, the temporary artists, those who have to rely on gigs? How do they benefit from that package? Thank you.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
I want now to take it back to the panelists, and maybe because I think Kuti and Ami have two questions. I can start with Honorable Hassan. Maybe you can respond to the first comment by Dr. Cole.
I think what Dr. Cole has said is right. We all do things in our small boardrooms. We haven't generated a suitable platform through which all information about whatever is going on art and artwork is done. I think that for him, I think he's provided an advice which we'll all tap into it. Again, that tells us that we do not have a proper platform through which all this information can be generated. I agree with him, and I think those are areas we need to explore.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Madam Puti. What is your take on Dr. Cole and Promise question?
I think considering whether we see the arts as creating a good platform in terms of how accessible it is very important that we really take advantage of what COVID has brought in terms of knowing how to spread our wings in the sector, because most of the time we've been doing things manual. Then it has really taught us to realize that it's important to be digital, and we should do a lot in terms of that and get the best out of what we can get out of from the sector. Then with Promise, he says, do we see COVID as an emergency, and how do we see ourselves going forward in terms of what COVID has brought to us? I've read, like initially I indicated that COVID has in some ways brought some positive results in the sense that we've noticed that people in the sector, they are more creative, and being more creative, they can now realize that they can not only be used for entertainment, they can make a living out of the talent. And we've noted that the creatives have been able to keep people busy during the lockdowns that we've been experiencing. And this is something that the sector should tap on and take it further in terms of realizing that there is more to themselves than just, trying to put bread on the table. There is more to themselves in terms of creating employment for themselves. There is more to themselves in terms of being contributors to their respective economies. So really, it's something that we need to reflect on as sector practitioners, to see that we tap on whatever experience that we've gotten from the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Ennis.
I think that it's a very good observation that was made, and we need to begin to put together that process. And we can use you can use the links that we have as a test case to see how we can share amongst ourselves and increase that. But I also regret to say, for instance, the leaders of these institutions can find, let's say, all the list of national theaters in Africa, or a list of all the major theaters in Africa. So we're really behind in all of that. We need to begin to put all of that data together so that at the very least, the leaders of these institutions can communicate, even if it's a quarterly basis or annual basis. That is where the conversation begins, and that is how we can begin to work more closely together and have the most benefit from the relationships. So I hope that at the end of these webinars, we'll be able to improve our communications amongst ourselves and not wait till another festival or series of webinars before we do that. I hope that these conversations continue more regularly. On the impact of COVID-19, Yes, I mean, I think that it's a situation where we're all finding our ways, but we also need to think beyond COVID-19. We shouldn't have people thinking for us. We are creative people. We have to think about how to sustain our businesses beyond COVID-19. Well, during and beyond, because if you can't perform for live audiences, what else can you do? No government, no organization can tell you what to do. We have to figure it out and bring people to it. So I hope that we all, whether we're as individuals or organizations, are looking at how this has affected us and how we can change the way we usually do our work so that we're getting exactly what we need from what we do, if that makes sense.
Just to add to what she said, we either have to invent new ways of survival in the art sector, or we perish. There's no shortcut to it. You've seen what the sports have done. Just 2 days ago, Chelsea and Arsenal played a very interesting match. The whole world watched it. Everybody watched from his small room and his small corner on his phone. People watched it. It was a virtual match. People played. People still got entertained by that match. So I think we must be creative enough. Art is known for creativity, and therefore we have brilliant people in the art sector who can be able to come up with the modalities to survive during this period and beyond. I can assure you, COVID is just one. The world is going to face many more challenges to come, and therefore we become creative enough to be able to meet the challenges of COVID and beyond if we are going to survive in the art sector. Like everybody else, every sector is burning the midnight oil to make sure that they survive beyond COVID and beyond. Thanks.
Our topic today is how have governments across Africa supported the theatre industry during COVID-19 pandemic? Follow our conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.
The tagline for our new strategic plan is "We draw the box." So we don't have to even try to fit within the box, but as creatives, we draw the box and we decide which kind of box we want to be working in.
Thank you very much. And just to mention and just to pick a few points, and this is what has driven the need for this webinar, is that we need to be united as an industry in theatre, and this will be our next webinar next week on Wednesday. It's basically bringing together theatre union leaders from across Africa to see how and to chart a way in which we can work together as theatre artists. And part of what has been discussed is a platform that can bring us all together. And that is something that is also in the pipeline. That is one of the biggest objectives of this webinar, to see that we have a platform that can link all of us from wherever we are. That anybody who wants to know anything about theatre in Africa, they can just click on one platform. If you have content that you want to share, we have that one platform that can provide this to all of us across the continent. And I want to give each member of the panel a minute or two to give their closing remarks and the view moving forward, what you would want to see. And you can end this by saying, where do you see theatre in Africa or in your respective countries in the next 5 years? We can start with Madam Puti.
Thank you very much. This was a good sharing and good discussion in terms of seeing theatre and the arts in general in Africa. We need to really work on the different structures that can bring us together, structures that can make us share our different experiences in terms of policy development, in terms of doing programs together, in terms of being able to influence our different governments for us to be able to support the sector. So this is something that we really need to work on together so that we are able to assist our practitioners. Since if we have the different working structures, the practitioners will also be able to, facilitate one another, be able to share because they are going to get our support. So really, I'm very delighted that I was part and parcel of this exciting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe just we can go to Honorable Hassan.
Thank you so much. I must also join my sister and say that this is really exciting to know the challenges theater arts is facing across the African continent, and more so our countries that have been presented here. There's no doubt we're going through quite a challenging time, and there's no doubt society that where we live in right now, we are going through one of the most stressful time of our history, and theater arts is now been called upon to alleviate the suffering of society during this stressful period. And therefore, as a ministry, we'll continue providing the policy direction, we'll continue sensitizing the county and national governments the importance of theater arts, and also continue making sure that art in the next 5 years is understood clearly. Like any other profession, we'll be able to sell art in a more dignified manner to the policy holders and policy makers of the country. We'll be able to convince the actions and policy directions, the people who hold the purse, the national treasury, and make them believe that art is equivalent to agriculture, health, and education. Therefore, that really is about our vision. The start of the National Sports, Art and Social Development Fund, it's a new beginning. It is quite a very fruitful policy direction that has come from the ministry. We are thinking of how to expand that fund. We are appealing for art to be considered for more funding from the current 5% to something higher so that they can be able to benefit like everybody else, if not in equal terms. So that really is our vision. But more importantly, my appeal to the artists is to make sure they start thinking out of the box. They start thinking of how to generate wealth. Art is no longer confined to amusement, of making people happy, of looking at people's emotions. We must take art as an investment. We must take art as a profession. We must make art as a money-minting business, like any other business that's being conducted in the country. That really is my take on this. And thank you so much for bringing us together on this very important platform this evening.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madam Emi.
My other two presenters have said it all. But, what we do, I said at the beginning that we are the heartbeat of the person. And what we do is emotional. It is not a physical thing. And so it's very difficult to sort of put a finger on it. But it is very important what we do. We make everything that we do better. I don't care what it is, whatever profession you go into, whatever you're doing on a daily basis, the arts is involved and it makes you a better person. I used to play a game with people and that I'll say, okay, so mention a professional. Let me tell you how the arts has an impact. Medicine, when you are involved in the arts, makes you have more empathy. So you relate to your patients better. If you talk about lawyer, who's better at storytelling than the theater artist? So you name a profession, we make you better in that profession. And that's why we're your heartbeat. You can't get rid of us. We need the support. You need to take care of your heart, because without us, your existence is going to be very dry. And we as a community, as an arts community, always need to remember that not everybody understands what we do. And sometimes we need to slow down to break it down to them, to explain to them why we're important and why we need their support. But thank you very much for putting this together. And I hope that we'll have many more in the future.
Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes to the end, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for taking part in this webinar. It has been a very engaging and fruitful conversation, and I must say I am honored as the convener of this webinar to have all of you taking part and sharing very insightful information, commitment to the sector, and sharing what government is doing and the ideas that have come out of this meeting. And I promise you that we will continue with this conversation, and I will personally continue the engagement with you in your respective capacities to see how best we can work forward and we can work together to make sure that theater in Africa thrives. Thank you very much. I am very honored, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the attendees who took their time to register and be part of this webinar. We are very honored, and I want to kindly request all of you to register for the next webinar on Wednesday. Next week, Wednesday, we'll be looking at how theater can work together. And really, this engagement and your contribution will be very critical in making sure that we work together. And I promise this is not the last. This is just but the beginning of this Theater in Africa conversation. And we are hopeful that post-COVID, we will even have this conference face-to-face physical. And I'm sure a lot of us can even host us. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you for signing up for Theater in Africa webinar series. Your presence and contribution is highly valued. Theater in Africa webinars is a series of 4 online seminars or discussions aimed at bringing together African theater practitioners, academia, government officials in charge of theater activities, development partners, and donors to discuss the effects of COVID-19 pandemic to the theater industry in Africa, government support during the pandemic, how theater can adapt to COVID-19 pandemic, and towards a united theater industry in Africa. Follow our conversation on our social media platforms: on Facebook at Kenya International Theatre Festival, on Twitter at KITFest_KE, on Instagram at KITFest_KE. Organized by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre. Powered by Kenya International Theatre Festival, connecting cultures through theatre.